Delighted to welcome Wit and this wonderful panel that we're going to hear more from. So I'll leave you to Audrey to introduce the panelists.
Thank you very much, Isabel, and you can definitely hear me. And thank you to Bird and Bird for hosting us again in your lovely building. We very much like coming back here. And for anyone who didn't notice the signs, we are filming tonight so that we can put this discussion up on the Wit YouTube channel. So if you don't want to be filmed, sit in the corner. Or don't say your name when you ask your question later. So I'm very pleased to have a phenomenal panel tonight. We decided this year to do this event the week after Global Entrepreneurship Week, since in the past we've often found that there's a conflict if we have it at the same time. So hopefully it's worked out, certainly worked out when it came to our panelists. So we have tonight Catherine Wines, who is director and co-founder of WorldRemit. We have Shirin Dehghan, who is senior partner at Frog Capital and founder and CEO of Arieso, which was acquired by JDSU. And we have Bethany Koby, who is co-founder and CEO of Tech Will Save Us. And Bethany is going to need to leave a little bit early, so I might ask my final question of her a little sooner than I would otherwise. So I'd like to start the panel off by just asking you all to tell us a little bit about the businesses that you've started, where they're at now, and just how you came up with the idea, why you decided to start businesses. So Bethany, why don't we start with you?
Sure. So Tech Will Save Us is an educational toy business that makes kits. So I brought some examples, because you do that when you have physical products. We make kits for kids between the ages of 4 all the way to 12. And the kits are all about creativity, play, and learning. So we teach kids certain skills that we think are really important for the next kind of generation in terms of electronics and programming and computational thinking, but also really important is creativity, problem solving, co-creation, so different kinds of what we call intelligences that are really important for kids. And we do that through products where kids have to make them themselves, and then they bring them to life by learning these skills. So our kind of pedagogy, if you will, is learning by doing. So some of the examples are some of our new products, which are really fun. So this is the sewing glow kit. It's all about electronic thread. Kids learn about electronics through sewing their own light-up badges. They can design them themselves, they can customize them, and in order to build them, they actually have to learn electronics in order to do that. So the kind of learning is stealth. All of the products are connected by a digital platform that has content, coding, and community. So that's a really important part of the kind of ecosystem that we've built. And kind of, I guess, why we started the business. My background is in design, so product design, branding, innovation. I worked at an international branding company for about 9 years, working with companies like Skype and General Electric, kind of developing kind of visions and products and services that were in line with this kind of mission. And my co-founder's background is in physical computing, so engineering for kind of physical interaction. Both of us were teaching in different capacities, and we were just very aware that education, it just isn't moving fast enough to keep up with technology. I mean, the challenge is we're educating a generation for jobs that don't exist, technologies that we don't even know are going to exist, skills that we don't know they need yet. So that's quite a daunting future. And so as educators, it was really evident that there was a different way to introduce these kind of skills to young people. And then I also had a child, and I have another one on the way. And as a new mom, I had gone into the toy department, and I was pretty depressed. It's pretty gendered, which was just kind of shocking. And also technology is being presented to kids very old-fashioned. It's not the world of, voice recognition and these amazing kind of new technologies that we experience as adults. And we thought, again, there was a more creative way to introduce kids to technology that was about productivity and creativity, not just consuming technology. So that was really the impetus for starting the business. In terms of where we're at, am I talking too much?
No, that's quite okay. That's fine. We're not even at 4 minutes past. So.
Okay. In terms of where we're at from a business perspective, so we started very modestly, interns packing kits on my kitchen table. And we've now grown to a team of almost 40 people. We just closed our Series A, which Angel Academy participated in, with some really exciting investors in the education space and in the gaming space. We have offices in New York, in the UK, and in France. We sell to 97 countries. We sell through e-commerce, Amazon, and we're in over 4,000 retailers, including John Lewis, Best Buy, Selfridges, Fnac. So some really iconic and important distribution kind of hubs. And we also sell to education, so after-school clubs, coding programs, and directly to schools as well. So I think that's a good overview.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. Now, Shirin, of course, you're in a different position because you started your business and you have sold your business.
Yes.
But why don't you tell us about starting the business, why, and then leading up to the sale of it?
Yeah, sure. So my background, I did electronics at university, and then when I left, mobile communication, this was a long time ago, was a really sort of up and coming industry, and it was growing really fast. So that's kind of where a lot of people went, and so did I, and became essentially a radio communication engineer and did software engineering as well. Worked for a number of different companies, including Vodafone Research and Development. And then in the early 2000s, when the third generation mobile standardization was happening, I saw an opportunity in the market for software products that could help mobile operators better manage and operate their networks. And because 3G was very new, nobody really knew what it was going to do, how it was going to behave with the networks. And I was one of the very early engineers that worked on 3G standardization, so I kind of knew it intimately. So I knew how to solve the problem, and of course, connecting the dots with there is nothing in the market that can do that. I resigned. Didn't tell my husband I was resigning. To his absolute surprise. Afterwards, he finds out. And I'm still married to him. And then basically I started the company, and it was quite a difficult time actually, because I started in 2002, and the sort of dot-com bubble had burst at that time, and the investors weren't investing in anything really. I mean, now is an amazing time to raise money for entrepreneurs, as I've found out since becoming a VC. But really, those times were really tough. Like you couldn't raise, especially if you don't have track record and you just got this idea. I've got an idea. It's like, well, nobody funds an idea. Good luck. So basically, I had to bootstrap. Work as a consultant, use a bit of saving, and managed to get it to a prototype stage, and really raise some sort of small amount of money, seed money from friends and family, and then started productizing. Again, couldn't raise money for about 3 years, so I took no salary for 3 years. After 3 years, when we actually had a product, and we were sort of had some of these really big companies in our pipeline, which I obviously building on my own, and I had 2 engineers. One was my husband, and the other one was somebody we hired, and of course myself, coding and etc. And I was selling at the same time, and it was really at that point when the VCs thought, hang on a minute, they've got Vodafone interested, they've got O2 interested, they've got all these really big companies interested, so they put in some money. And that's when I actually started breathing again and earning some money, which was good. So really brought that product to market. But the story kind of doesn't go too well in the first phase of the company, because actually there was a really, really, really big contract that I was trying to win. It was Vodafone Group, and Group means all of the countries that were part of the Vodafone family would have to use my product, but there was another competitor that was, we were competing against, a German competitor, and they had a lot of good political connection to Vodafone Germany. And of course, being an engineer and not really from the business world, I had very little business experience. And I was of the opinion that the best product is, of course, going to win, because I'm the engineer, I made it, I know how amazing it is. And I spent my time hanging around with engineers, and they were really happy with my product. But what I didn't do is hung around with the budget holders and wined and dined those guys. And unfortunately, that lost me a 12 million euro deal, which would have completely transformed my business, obviously, and would have had a lot earlier exits than I did. So anyway, that didn't go too well. And then obviously, the competitor, once the competitor gets initiative in a market, that's it. Even if you're in the second place, it doesn't work out in most markets. Number two, unless the market is amazingly huge, but usually number two, number three kind of pick up the crumbs. And I was picking up the crumbs in Europe, and they were going around cleaning up. And so I switched my attention to US. Because they weren't in the US, and that really saved my company, that decision. I managed to win AT&T, which is like a massive operator in the US. But I still knew that really, that product wasn't going to take me to where I needed to go. Because I'd lost most of the market to this competitor, and then I had to come up with a second product, which I did. And thankfully, that again was the kind of the right product for the market at that time. It was a completely different product. It was moving away from like a desktop application for engineers to an enterprise big data application. And at the time, I had to change a lot of the team. So really a lot of tough decisions, because I built a team for a particular product. But then I wanted to build a different product, and the team wasn't right. So including my own husband, who was the CTO, I had to basically demote him and hire in a CTO.
And you're still married?
I'm still married. But yeah, sometimes in business you have to make tough decisions, because ultimately if you don't, everybody pays, right? So you've got to kind of put emotions aside, step back, and just say, okay, what do I need to do to make a success out of this? And then once I changed the team, or augmented in some cases, we brought out the market in 2009, which was when the financial crash happened. So I've been through it's been a journey. As a financial crash happens, so we're like this amazing product, and no one wants to spend money. Like, shoot me right now. Anyway, we sort of muddled through, and it was the first time I had to make some people redundant, to cut costs down and just hunker down, and get through that period of financial crisis. And then once our customers started spending money, so in 2010, so in 2009 our revenues were a couple of million, and then in 2014 we went from 2 million to 40 million, and that just shows the growth that basically we managed to do. And the product obviously was good, and so was in the first case, but obviously I screwed up on sales and marketing. But in the second one, the sales and marketing was spot on, and execution and everything that needs to go with the technology. So if there are any technologists amongst you, by the way, technology is 10% of your success. And it has to work, it has to be right, but it isn't like the thing that's going to make you successful. So that was a lesson that I learned the hard way. So, and then I sold my company, but I'm sure we'll talk about that later.
Yes,
so I'll stop talking. So that's me.
Great. Quite a journey, yeah. And Catherine. Yeah.
So, yes, I'm the co-founder of WorldRemit. So WorldRemit is an online money transfer company. And we specialize in what we call remittances, which is helping people sending money back home. So we send remittance to emerging economy. And so we started in 2010. And really, it was to disrupt an industry which had been dominated by a couple of players like Western Union and MoneyGram, very traditional cash to cash, to go to a shop and to take cash there, and then at the other end, the person would receive cash. In a way, we kind of compare a bit ourselves to the travel industry. Years ago, if you wanted to buy a air ticket, you would go to a travel agent. Now you go online, and this is what we really wanted to do in 2010, is to bring the industry online. But it was not just to bring it online, it was to make it better as well, and obviously using the technology to make it better in terms of compliance, because if you Google Western Union and MoneyGram fines, you'll see they pay a lot of fines in compliance because they rely on other people to do the compliance. So we can't change that by doing it ourselves and using the technology, but also use that technology to reduce costs, because that's one thing that remittances are very expensive, or were very expensive, and we help to drive the cost. So that was our really premise, our mission initially. Both Ishmael and I had worked in the remittance sector. And we were actually introduced by a common friend. We worked in similar companies, but actually never met. And we were introduced by a common friend when Ishmael had the idea and he wanted to set up the company. And then one thing that I was saying to someone outside is, when you set up and you have co-founder, very important to find people complementary. Don't set up business with friends. Though you've done your husband, and I know you're incredible, because I think most people, especially after all this experience, I'm sure a lot of people would have ended up in a divorce. But I think it's very important if you have co-founders to have complementary skills. So Ishmael was very much a visionary and kind of compliance person, and I was everything else, kind of doing. I'm an accountant by profession, but I worked in the remittance sector, business development, marketing, and compliance, operation, and so on. So I was the one, kind of help keep the business, and the practical one, because obviously, a lot of men are not that practical. But so that's it. So we started, I said, back in 2010. The idea also, we also identify very quickly, new technology in the emerging markets, especially in Africa, where mobile money was really created. So mobile money is about, people using their mobile, and we're not talking of, kind of smartphone. We're talking of the old Nokia type phone we used to have back in the year 2000s. And where the mobile operator creates a wallet, a virtual wallet, and people can therefore receive money. And that means that people who before didn't have a bank account, because in Africa, for example, less than 20% of people have got bank accounts, they could start being financially included and make payments without having to use cash. So started 2010, 3 of us, we are now about 700 people. We operate from about 50 countries, so we operate from all over. So we send from all over Europe, US, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Japan, Singapore, Malaysia, and we're now expanding into also sending from Africa, but we send to about 150 destinations. And our product, you still can collect cash, because in some places there's no other option but to collect cash. But we're big into mobile money, because we were the first one to do that, to send to mobile money. We probably 50% of the transaction worldwide are done to mobile money, are done through WorldRemit. We do to bank account as well, and some what we call airtime top up. And so 700 people, 50 to 150, 60 million revenue last year, hoping to be close to 90, 95 this year. So quite exciting. We've just appointed a new CEO. So I was a CEO, and I've became a more kind of a non-exec, and dealing with the board and other matter, and promoting the company. And Ismail has now become the executive chairman, and we have appointed a new CEO to take us to the next level.
Excellent.
And having raised 220 million during that time as well.
Only
dollars.
Only
220 million.
Great. Yes, I just realized that 3 of us on this panel have worked with our husbands or partners in our businesses. So you're the odd one out in that
yes,
one.
Yes, I'm the odd one out. Though sometimes he felt like he was spending more time with me than with his wife. And sometimes his wife used to call me and say, "Where is he?" I said,
Yes. Yes, at least we all always knew where the other one was, I suppose. Well, let's talk about best and worst decisions, if we could. Shirin, why don't we start with you? What would you say was your best decision and your worst decision?
I think I don't want to say best decision, but maybe best decisions together. I hired an awesome team. So to me that, some of the people that I hired stayed with me for years and years and years through the ups and downs, and I think really without them, I don't think I would have come out, smelling of roses, frankly. So for me, it was absolutely that was some of the best decisions that I've made. Worst decision, other than obviously not taking sales and marketing particularly seriously. Gosh, I don't have one.
Wonderful.
But it's difficult
because they're all equally.
Yeah.
No, I think the thing is, startup is a journey, right? When you start a company, it's a bit like, throwing yourself off a cliff, right? You just sort of, in free fall. You have no idea what's going to happen. It may be an amazing landing, or it may be, you may just crash and burn or whatever. And really the trick is, and you're making decisions all the time as executive CEO, whatever. And fundamentally, as long as you make more good decisions than bad decisions, you'll be fine. Mm-hmm. So I think that's the thing. So when you say worst decision, I think really it was the fact that I didn't have the experience to really recognize how to really sell my product. Mm-hmm. I think, and it wasn't a decision. Per se, it was just lack of knowledge and experience, and perhaps if I'd taken a mentor earlier in my journey, I absolutely recommend this to anyone who is starting off, who is doing this for the first time, is actually team up with someone who've done it before, because I think that would stop you from making a whole shitload of mistakes, which I did. I kind of woke up to that fact a bit late. Once I kind of knew that if I didn't come up with a second product, my company was going to go down the toilet, frankly. So I managed to get a really amazing woman as my chairwoman, who as a non-exec, and she was my mentor, which was amazing. Yeah. So she taught me a lot of stuff.
Yeah, good. Well, don't be surprised if you get a few requests at the end of this evening. Bethany, how about you?
I would echo that you kind of know what you know, and you do the best you can with the knowledge you have at that moment. And so best and worst is quite judgmental. But that being said, there have been better and worse. I think the best decision, kind of where I'm at now, is I think two things, and I don't think you know it necessarily when you're doing it. I think one is we've built a board and a team of investors that share our values, and that's only evident when things are shit, right? When something happens and things are not great, that's when everyone's true colors really shine, and when you really know the kind of core of who these people are that you've actually, taken money from, but also that are ultimately investing in you personally and want something from this relationship. Yeah. And we have done a freaking amazing job bringing in investors that are our values so to the T, and have been with us through, bad decisions and supported, mitigating those decisions, or supporting kind of finding new ways of getting through those difficult moments. And I think that's like the best thing we've done.
Great.
The other best thing I've done is hired a very fucking fantastic marketing person and spending a nice chunk of cash to do that. And I think that leads to maybe worst decision was hiring a not great marketing person that, even though they were not as expensive, was not worth even what they were getting at that moment. Yeah. I would have spent more sooner. People that are great because they have an amazing amount of experience, and hopefully you understand very quickly why they're worth what you're spending.
Yes.
And now that we've done that, it took a while to get there. It's another universe of everything. So that was definitely one of the best decisions that we've made. And then I think the other best decision is like taking the leap, jumping off the cliff and doing it with something that I'm not getting sick of as we grow and as the problems get more complex, because I deeply care about what we're doing. I think it should exist. The market's growing. This is the only direction that kids and play is going. And so even when it's bad, I think it was the right thing to do.
Right. Good. Catherine.
Okay. Well, obviously, a lot of things have been said there, which resonate. But I think one of the things maybe we did right, it was to also to focus as well. Because at the beginning of a business, it's very easy to spread and say, okay, you have a product, but there's a lot of things on the side you could do, and then you can spread yourself very thin and then don't achieve anything. Where we were very focused and make sure that we were very focused, and I think that helped us to grow the way we did. That we could have, for example, just to give you an example, we're into remittance, so it was mainly P2P. We could have done business transaction as well, and so on. But then we would need the way you handle business transaction is different to P2P, and therefore you would have had the different people and so on. And when you are very small and very short of cash, because our business requires a lot of working capital, you can't. And focus is very important. And sometimes I do a bit of mentoring now, and I've got some people that said, you want to do all these things, can you narrow it down to 2 or 3 things, because I feel like you're not going to achieve anything. So I think that's one thing we did well. And also we wanted to be global. And I think that was very important. We made that decision from day one. And I've seen some other companies who come in the market and we didn't take that approach and are very far behind us, whereas we had very much that approach. Worse, I think, I wouldn't call it worse, but not maybe difficult things or things that we didn't do well. And I think recruitment is very hard, especially when you are trying to, we've made mistakes and we had to let people go, a bit like you said. It's very difficult. And, if I was to redo it again, I probably would have invested in a people's person much earlier. Because, I'm not an HR. I had to do the HR, but I'm not an HR person. Ishmael is definitely not an HR person. And, we didn't do quite, we wasted a lot of time and money recruiting people we're not right, and therefore having to get. So if there's something that, I would do again, that's that. And I think, and the problem when you're a startup, you think people is a bit of a, nice to have, but actually you spend so much money recruiting people. It's worth it.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's some good lessons in there.
Yeah.
We got very good at Multimap at determining in the first 3 months if someone was going to cut it or not, and deciding quickly. Unfortunately for some, but you just have to.
Well, it's very difficult, when you're a startup, because you want to recruit obviously very talented people, but you want also people who are prepared to roll their sleeves, and because when you're when you're 10 of you or 20. You can't be there in the nice office and letting the others to do, because you are one of them. And we found that some people, although they say, yes, I'm prepared to roll my sleeve, when they actually came in, they were not prepared to do that. So at that stage, we couldn't afford to have a very expensive person who is going to do just the nice things and not all of it. So and it's only as you get a bit bigger that you can finally attract those people, because you're big enough to do that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I'm going to open it up to questions now, and then I'll come back and ask some more questions myself. But I want to make sure that before Bethany has to go about 10 to 8, that people will have had a chance to ask her questions if they have them. So does anybody have a question right now? Cindy, we do have a microphone. Sorry, Annette.
She's enjoying yourself too much.
I think you can probably hear me.
Well, but we are filming, and so it'll be better for it'll be better for that if we'll hear you better on the video, Cindy.
Cindy Etzel from Cooking Up Success. Quick question, and that is, if you could change one thing, knowing what you know now, what would it be?
And that's for everyone?
For everyone.
Okay, who'd like to start with that one?
Well, I guess in a way I've said it. I would probably look at hire someone in HR first, much earlier than Condé. Also, one thing I think is communication and with people. When we didn't get our Series A until 2014, which was 4 years after we started, which is quite late. A lot of startups raise money much earlier, and we took it as a decision. We wanted to prove the model and therefore keep control of the business when we came to have a Series A. So I'm not saying there's a right or wrong way, but we were about 40, and it's like a family. Everybody knows everything. You're around, the small office. Everybody knows everything. So you don't need to communicate because communication is there. And then we got Series A, and we started recruiting, and suddenly we were 100, 150 people. And we forgot that when you have 150 people, the communication is not like that. And people were starting saying, well, we don't know what's happening, and so on. And it took us a little while to say, oh, we've got to do something, and we've got to communicate. So we started, having proper, stand up and all sorts of things to communicate. And it's very important, especially because we have a very young workforce. It's a millennial workforce. Communication is very important.
Yeah. Shirin?
Obviously, there are many, many mistakes that I would put right, but I think probably the one thing that I would do is would have negotiated really much harder with my VCs. Now that I'm a VC myself. As an entrepreneur, you don't actually realize that they need you as much as you need them. And I didn't know that. And I thought I was the only one that was needed. I was in need, especially when the times were not good during the financial crisis and when the first product didn't go so well. So I definitely would have negotiated a lot harder and had a bigger share of what turned out to be an amazing outcome. For them, an amazing outcome for me, but I just wanted it to be more amazing. So that's that's probably one thing.
I think mine is probably related to some of the things that I said. I think I would have recruited more experienced management team earlier, with really clear expertise in the things that we needed, and not waited for that or thought that those people could kind of grow in the business. I think it's a great thing that a startup has the opportunity for people to grow and to kind of learn on the job. But I think in terms of kind of the management team itself, I think if those competencies are in place already, then it allows everyone to grow faster. So I think I would have done that sooner.
No replacement for experience.
No.
Yeah. Other questions before I take the questions back? Yep, back there. There are two back there, Annette, so both aisle seats.
Hi, Erin He. I have a question. After you jumped off the cliff edge, at which point and how did you realize that you made the breakthrough and you made it?
When I sold my company. When I had the money in my bank account, that's when I found that. That's when I knew that, okay, I've made it. But also, quite seriously, it's, actually starting a company is not just about money, right? Obviously, money is part of it. But I was, I'm just naturally a very driven, competitive person, so that's also part of it. But fundamentally, it's about building something great. And I didn't quite realize how much I enjoyed building something great until my company really, passed 50 people. And when I was managing an international, workforce of 200 plus worldwide, when I had Spanish speakers, Chinese speakers, Arabic speakers, basically, I think we had like over 20 languages in the company. Spanish was my second language in the business. Actually, it was funny because I once walked into a meeting which was conducted purely in Spanish. And I just walked in and said, okay, I'm not understanding this, I better get out. And so that, when you see that, and when you see people grow, so you hire somebody like five years ago, and then you see them progress and grow into a manager and take on more responsibility, and you see people meet at work, and they get married, and you get all kinds of stuff that happens, and you're kind of sitting there thinking, oh my God, it's me jumping off that cliff that made all this possible. And so in a way, I'd already made it, but of course, having that final confirmation was nice. So yeah.
Yes, it's, I think for us maybe, similar, but at the same time, we haven't sold the company, so, but when, I think when we did Series A, Series A, I think was, we actually, the VC contacted us. They, I think Ishmael had done a presentation back in, and they kind of noticed and they'd done some research and came to us. And it was Axel, and Axel is a big fund. They were early investors in Facebook, all these big companies, and they came and invested in little WorldRemit, and I thought, wow, we must have done something right. So that was quite nice. I thought, yeah, I think we're on the right track here.
Yeah, well, Axel passed on me, so.
Oh, sorry. I'll remind them.
Yeah, tell them they made a mistake.
I think, I would echo the kind of journey kind of comment, because I don't think you've made these things when you're in it. I think it's really hard to see, at least I find it really difficult to sometimes see all the milestones and the successes, because the moment you achieve one of them, you're already looking at the one kind of 2 years from now or 3 years from now. So I do find it quite challenging sometimes to kind of reflect and be in those moments. So I work really hard to do that and to work with the team to do that. I think all those little milestones, though, give you the confidence that you're going in the right direction. Even the mistakes, I think, sometimes give you the confidence to go in the right direction. I definitely think funding rounds are symbols of moments of these kind of successes. I think for us, some of the kind of more recent, we've not made it by any stretch of the word in terms of what we think the potential is. But as someone said the other day in a kind of a screening that I went to, that I think that sometimes knowing that what you're building is part of a narrative that's bigger than you. The fact that we've built a category that didn't exist when we started the business, there wasn't even a STEM aisle in any retailer anywhere. The fact that we've been a kind of iconic brand that has helped to build that narrative, maybe I'm just making an excuse, but I find some kind of real satisfaction in the fact that we've even been a part of that narrative, that no matter what happens with the business, if we have this amazing success, which we all hope we do, even if we have not as amazing, but still relatively good success, that we have built a category, and that I think is a really good thing. So that doesn't really totally answer your question, but that's what I'm thinking about right now.
I think that's a good answer. And there was a question. Actually, okay.
Which way around?
Well, I think she had her hand up first. So.
Pam Bateson from Thrive Partners. My question is about, it came out of your point, Shirin, about 10% of the tech only being part of it. What have you learned to spend your money on? If you think about being wise spenders of the money, what have you learned about the way to spend your money well?
That's
not your personal wealth from selling it, but how do you do wise growth?
Okay. So in terms of a company, I think that obviously, when I say 10% of success, that doesn't mean 10% of money actually, because clearly, having a tech team is expensive and you need to invest a lot in your technology. But what I mean is that, the whole creating of a market, being seen as the thought leader, being seen as the company that's essentially number one in that space that you're creating. So that's all about marketing. It's about how you position yourself, how analysts see you, like Gartner, and if it's appropriate for. My business was B2B, obviously, so it was a completely different, kettle of fish. So in that world, you want to be seen as the most successful, the most visionary company, etc. And that gives the customers the confidence to spend millions and millions with you. So because we were selling to some of the largest mobile operators in the world, they were spending like 20 billion on their networks, for example. So our contract sizes were very, very large. And for them to come and spend, let's say, in one go, 10 million with a tiddly little company in the UK, I mean, that's just unheard of. So, but you have to give that persona that, I'm going to be amazing and I'm going to grow, and this is like the future, and I'm taking you with me. And it's that narrative, it's that kind of positioning that you have in the market. And of course, you have to have an amazing sales machine that the marketing kind of joins up really closely with, and be able to execute on that. So the sales and marketing is a big expenditure that I would definitely take on. And of course, then the execution part of it, the delivery, like you can't just sell and not be able to deliver to your customers. So everything needs to work, right, in an organization. But I would say you can sell your way out of trouble. So selling, get a good sales team definitely can help a lot.
I mean, just to come an analogy with, in terms of WorldRemit, what we did quite early on, which is quite unusual for, a smaller company, we did a lot of PR. And the reason why is we are P2P, unlike you. We are understanding money, so there's a trust element is really, really important, and you've got to build that kind of trust. So, doing some PR and kind of being shown in the market that we are a company to be, so when we did the Excel deal, we plastered everything. And that kind of really helped us to build, raise our status, because, a small company, everybody who knows Western Union, they didn't know WorldRemit. You're sending money, can we trust that company? And therefore to raise our profile around the world really helped us to attract customers, because then they say, well, if this company is in the market and they are dealing with big companies as well, we were always choosing a lot of partners which were well known to our customers, and therefore the association helped us to raise our standing.
I mean, I think every business is different, obviously, in terms of how you structure, but I would definitely echo that, like, everything has to work, so you want to invest in great people. It has to be about the people that are going to be building the execution plan, that are going to be joined up, that know how to do that you don't have to teach them to do that, or if you are teaching them, that they are right for the business. So I would say the way you spend money wisely is by hiring great people that will spend the money wisely and execute really, really well. And then for us, so you guys invested in PR early. We spent a lot of time investing in developing the right products early, because no matter how much we would do marketing or how well we thought we were positioning ourselves or how great we thought this brand needed to be, ultimately, if kids don't love doing things with our products, it doesn't matter. So for the first 2 years, we had a large product team, more than anyone else in the business, and that was really important for us to get that right, which I think is a foundation for the next stage of the business.
Yeah, it's very true. Every business, your businesses are all very different, different things at different times. So there was another question up here somewhere, and then I'm going to take it back. No? Oh. Right, Stephanie, I'll come back to you after I ask my question, because...
Hi, my name is Dixie Taylor. I'm from a company called Gilmore Stevens, who coincidentally specialise in recruitment for tech startups. So if any time for self-promotion, I feel like now is the time. I mean, you talk about sort of jumping off a cliff a lot, and I would love to know kind of what happened, sort of what gave you the confidence to kind of take your idea from sort of, oh, you know what, like there's a gap in the market and this is kind of an exciting idea that I have, to kind of actually really just taking that leap.
Shall we start with you, Bethany?
Sure. I mean, I think every individual obviously has their own moments that kind of make that. I think first and foremost, every entrepreneur is ultimately totally insane. You have to have some level of just, you have to be okay with risk, and there's something that's driving you that outshines your fear. and you find something in your life or your, whatever you need to basically make that thing more substantial than whatever fear is potentially preventing you from doing it. And it's not right for everyone, and not everyone should do it, and that's why not everyone does it. But I do think there's something that's driving, at least for me or for all the entrepreneurs I've ever met, that's driving you to do it, that's way more significant than that fear that will, by the way, is always there. Like, it doesn't go away. It's just different because it manifests in different ways. I think that's definitely, that didn't really answer, like, it's not like I don't think it's an answer. I think it's kind of a choice. And also there's like, for us, like, we discussed it, and there is the kind of, what's the worst that could happen? And I kind of like asking myself that still, because ultimately when you kind of play it out to the end, sometimes it might be terrible, but it's not unrecoverable. And I think that fear of the unrecoverability of something tends to be the thing that, at least for me, makes you not do something that might require like a lot of grit.
Sure.
For me, I think it was hormones.
And then there's that.
I was pregnant when I decided that I wanted to start my own company. So there's something definitely insane about what I'm being serious. Actually,
It was just crazy.
I was crazy. And I was coding whilst I was pregnant, and it was just crazy. And then I gave birth to my son, and I went back to Vodafone. I said, "Nah, I can't do that. Here's my resignation." So. No, I do concur with everything you said there. I think there's something like really inside you that's driving you. I mean, the thing that really fundamentally I wanted to do it, even though my husband was totally against it, because we had a comfortable life, and I was like a really sort of senior engineer, and I was earning lows, he was earning lows, so we could have had a really comfortable life, and I didn't have to put myself through this. But I didn't want to ask what if, right? I had this idea. I could see there was a gap in the market, and I knew how to solve the problem. And it was just this burning desire to find out what would happen if I did. And I just couldn't get it out of my head. But one thing I would say to anyone who's thinking about potentially jumping off a cliff, you've got to make sure that you are... you have a support around you, especially if you're a woman and you want to have still, a family like I did, because a startup is like having another baby, right? I mean, it is exactly the same, and it goes through exactly the same stage. It's really totally weird. And I mean, I'm being serious. Like, it goes from like baby, toddler, teenage.
Yeah.
It's just, it's yeah.
Mine's gone to university now.
Mine's graduated, but anyway. But I'm being so you have to make sure that. So, for example, I was very, very lucky that my mom, basically, I sat down with her and I said, "Look, if I do this, will you take care of the kids, right? Because I'm going to be traveling a lot or whatever." And she said, "Yeah, absolutely, as long as you give me 10% of whatever you get." And this is the truth. And I sat there and I wrote something down, and we're Iranians, so I had to write something down in Farsi, right? Because otherwise she would understand. So it was like a piece of paper which she kept for 10 years. So. But yeah, I mean, she totally took care of the kids.
Did she get the 10%?
Which was amazing. I mean, honestly, otherwise, I don't think I could have really done what I did, because I was traveling about 60-70% of the time. I was living on a plane. Literally, I was in one part of the world, because my market was global. I had to go global day one. I was selling in China, in South America, in North America, in Middle East. I mean, literally everywhere. And so without that support, and my husband was very supportive after I told him I resigned, but what I'm saying is that you have to have a very, very good support system, especially for women, because we tend to feel really, really guilty to leave our kids behind. And I know it's kind of, I don't know, cliche to say, but I don't think men actually feel guilty. I think women do. So I think that's probably one. But anyway, but I felt totally comfortable because I knew my mom would completely take care of them, and I had no worries when I was traveling.
Well, in our case, a bit different because we both, Ismail and I, just come out of another job in the industry, and therefore we were ready for something else. And obviously the idea, so it helped, coming out with that frustration that things were not right, and we wanted to do something different. So very, very different. But I certainly concur as well with the need of a support network in any business. To be fair, obviously, if you have children, it's even more important. But even you need, because it's going to be hard. You're going to be really going through hard, difficult times, and having that support network, mentor, whether it's a mentor or someone, is really, really important. Because you can feel quite lonely, because you can't share all that with the staff, even if they're very supportive and everything. There's things you cannot share when things are really, really tough, and if you haven't got any way to express and to talk to someone, it can be very lonely and very tough.
Yeah. Now, given the time, usually my last question for this panel is, what one piece of advice would you give to other women who want to become entrepreneurs or who are entrepreneurs? But we'll have that question now so that Bethany can answer it and then slip away. So we'll start with you also.
So advice to someone that
One
wants to
piece of
start.
advice or advice generally. You've all been giving a lot of advice already tonight, of course, but is there something we haven't asked about where there's some advice you'd give?
I do think all the points that have been raised are really relevant and stuff that I kind of learned along the journey, having advisors, having support networks, communities that you can reach out. I think those are so fundamental. In terms of advice for anyone that kind of, wants to start a business, I guess it's kind of cliched, but if you're going to take the leap, if you have the support network, if you've made that decision, make sure it's something that you sufficiently care about, really passionately, because I think that's fundamental to staying the course, to having the stamina to really solve this problem or the need that you've kind of outlined. And there are lots of ways of figuring that out if you really care about it, but it has to be able to drive you for 10 years. Absolutely.
Or more.
Or more, yeah, but at a minimum.
Yeah. Okay, well, why don't we let you slip away, Bethany, because
Thank you so much.
do
I'm
have
so
to.
sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
Very nice to meet you.
I like the thought.
Yeah.
And don't forget to let.
You can buy them in John Lewis and online and on Amazon. Tech will save us.
And I
Thank
believe
you.
that Tech Will Save Us is going to come to the Wit Holiday Party as well.
Yes.
So we'll be talking about that tomorrow. But
Thank you.
so onward with this question. Shirin, would you like to tackle it?
Yeah, so, I think Bethany said passion is really important. You've got to really, believe in what you're doing, almost to an insane type of level. And I think if you do, and you've taken enough, shall we say, you've done enough of your market, looked at the market and feel confident that this is going to work, I'd definitely recommend it. It's a tough journey. It's definitely not for the faint-hearted, and there will be times that you just want to shoot yourself and crawl up and cry somewhere, and I have cried a couple of times during that journey. But looking back, I would absolutely do it again. It was 1,000 times harder than I thought when I took that leap. But believe me, it was 1,000,000 times more rewarding.
Okay.
Yeah.
Catherine?
Yeah, passion, there's no doubt about it. If you're not passionate about what you're doing, then you will not go through the hell and the heaven at any time. One thing I would say, and we talked a bit about, mentoring and having, a support network, is also find a little bit of time just for you. So I know it's sometimes difficult. The first more or less 6 years at WorldRemit, I worked 7 days a week, non-stop. I have another holiday, and even the last 2 years, I still haven't managed to have a proper holiday. But every Sunday, I go swimming, do 50 lanes at a pool where I've been there for many years, and I've got a group of friends, and we have coffees. And at those 2 hours, are really important to me, because unless I was traveling, I was always making sure I do that. Whether if I was tired, first when I was swimming, when I was annoyed, I would go there. But that was it was my time, and I think it's important to find a bit of time, whatever the activity is, or whether it's on your own or with your family or whatever. But you need to have that little bit of time for yourself as well, because otherwise you go insane as well.
Yeah. Now, Stephanie, I took your question time, so would you like to ask your question now?
I promised. I'll be quick. Stephanie Liston. Well, we have 4 female entrepreneurs on the panel, and I would like you to answer a couple of the questions that you asked, Audrey.
Oh, right.
One is best and worst decisions at Multimap, and what's the one piece
So
of
long
advice
ago.
you would give? Still very relevant.
It was so long ago. I like all the advice that we've had tonight. Actually, I do think it's important to have time for yourself, and I suppose I would also say, if you are going to do your business with your partner or husband or whatever, make sure you have a strong relationship before you start. I know a lot of investors don't like to invest in businesses that are husband-wife teams, but I think we've actually had a fair number of good results from husband and wife teams. So I'm not sure that that's the best decision on investors' parts. I don't know. I'm sure there are plenty of disasters.
There's no data to prove it one way or the other.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay. Just need a few more exits. Go ahead, Annette.
You talked a lot about people, and they are absolutely vital to any company, and as you're growing it, clearly. What do you think about giving shares to your people? Do you want them to be part of your company to that extent or not?
Yeah, well, we set up an option scheme more or less from the beginning. So we have given options to staff, to people from more or less the beginning. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, same for me. I gave options to everybody, regardless of their position in the company. I know some entrepreneurs don't feel that way. They're usually men. And they only keep it to a certain number of people. But I actually think if you do that unanimously to everybody, and the reason I did it fundamentally was I didn't want at the exit party to face someone and for them not to have benefited. And I want that exit party to be absolutely amazingly fun for everyone and everyone to have benefited. And yeah, so that's kind of that was my reason.
Yeah, well, and that's a good segue to my question about your exit, Shirin. So tell us a bit about the decision. I know how difficult it is to sell.
To sell your baby?
Yeah.
Yes. So, when I started the company, I never, and I think it's important that an entrepreneur, when they start a company, kind of are true to themselves. Are they starting a lifestyle business, that they want to run forever and pass on to their kids? Or are they starting something to grow a business for as much as they can, take it and eventually sell it and, make a financial return out of that? And so I think for me, from the start, I had decided that I wanted to grow a business and sell it. So I knew that's what I wanted to do. So it wasn't something that I wanted to pass on to my kids and run it forever or anything like that. I was very, very much focused on the wealth side of things. And so to that end, I went and raised venture capital money, because if you want a lifestyle business or you're not willing to give up control, then you better not go and raise VC money. It's not advisable. So I always knew that I wanted to exit. And so the decision to exit really came, and we were really being successful. We were growing at about 80% a year, 100%, something like that. And we were number one in the market that we'd created, and a lot of companies were kind of hovering around. And you get that feeling when you're being really successful when you go to events and shows, and the senior guy from IBM shows up at your booth and starts asking questions about your revenue, then you kind of know, okay, so things are hotting up in my sector and they're eyeing my company up. And so I knew something was going to happen, but of course you don't have a crystal ball. You don't know when. And clearly you've got to carry on execution. So with the execution, because you can't sort of obviously let go. You've got to have your foot firmly on the gas and delivering the numbers, delivering the growth, as if you're always going to run it forever, which is kind of a contradiction to what I said at the beginning, but that's your mindset. You've got to keep going. But you also know that something is happening here. So I actually, when I had that feeling in the market, I started preparing actually about, I would say, 12 to 14 months before the actual first offer came in. Started preparing not only kind of, what kind of information we needed to put in a data room, started preparing my own team in terms of, how they might be, for example, challenged in a due diligence process. So actually hired people, consultants that had been doing due diligence for much bigger companies to carry out acquisition. And they came in and kind of give my team a grilling. So that was sort of really a number of good sessions for them. And also I really, for the last 12 months before the exit, I spent a lot of my time with those potential acquirers. Not to say that, my company was for sale or anything, but just to sit down and talk to their executives, find out what their strategic direction was. And by finding out about what your potential acquirers are thinking and where they're thinking of going, then you can also think about how your company can fit within that and how you can enhance their strategy and what's the value add to that. And of course, you can't talk to every company under the sun. So I literally, in a methodical way, went through their balance sheet, made sure that they could actually afford to buy my company at the level that I would be happy paying. There's no point talking to someone who can't afford to buy you. So made a list of, I think it was like 15 companies, and I just went and did a kind of a roadshow, talked to a lot of them, and eventually a first offer came in, and we knew exactly which banker we were going to work with. We hadn't appointed one, but we knew who it was going to be. So we'd done all the beauty parades, etc. So when the first offer came in, banker was appointed. We went round to the various acquirers. Basically, there was literally an auction going on between them, which was great. So three companies were bidding, and we took the bid from the company that we liked. It was all cash, no earn-out, which was wonderful. And we completed the deal literally from the first offer that we signed within 2 months, which was absolutely incredible. And the reason we did that was because of all the preparation that we had done previously. So we were running around like headless chickens when they were doing DD. And believe me, when a company acquires you, it's a completely different level of due diligence. I mean, it's horrendous. Literally, I had 35 people descend upon my company. My company was only 100 people when I sold it. And I had 35 people from the acquirer coming in, doing due diligence and talking to basically a bunch of people, looking through a data room, et cetera, et cetera. So it was quite intense, 3 weeks. We went through it, and it was all successful.
Yeah, and all of which JDSU is publicly traded, are they not? So
they're publicly
therefore,
traded.
All of that had to be kept quiet.
Absolutely, we had to do it in a hotel off-site, and we couldn't tell anyone. Yeah. And actually, during due diligence, one of my sales directors from US, booked a room there, and we were all like, "Oh shit, James is here! Oh no, what do we do?" We're trying to hide from him. It was like really weird. Anyway, he knew in the end, and we sort of told him, "Look, keep it quiet, blah blah blah." And but yeah, it all went through. And the good thing was that when we sold the company was really growing, and we carried on growing the company whilst within JDSU. And the legacy still continues. I mean, about 3 weeks ago, I saw EE, which was an operator in the UK. They actually were making a presentation and saying, in the conference about how they're using my product to do X, Y, and Z. So I thought, so that was pretty cool. Nice. Actually, after all these years, still. Yeah. It's, still there.
Yes, that's very good.
I think in our case, we knew very, very early on, very quickly that we had a mission. Our business has a mission, and the impact. What we do is help people sending money back home for basic support, education, health, and so on. So it's not just, we are a commercial business, but there's a mission behind it. So we're very passionate from that point of view. So we always wanted to become a true challenger to some of the companies we mentioned earlier, and therefore to grow independent. And that's what we've done. So I think, unless some kind of big players came around, and there wouldn't be a remittance company because they couldn't afford us now. But it's more likely to be an IPO rather than to stay, kind of independent. So that's for us is to continue as we are, keep growing, and potentially 2 or 3 years time maybe look at an IPO to obviously repay some of our early investors.
Great. Any other questions from the floor before we wrap things up? Sarah? Oh, wait, microphone.
Just back to earlier days. When is the optimum time to take money? I think you had less of a choice, Shirin, but was that a blessing in disguise in the end? And useful to hear your
as I said earlier, we did our Series A so we had a bit of seed money, about $5 million seed money, and then we did our Series A for $40 million in 2014, which was 4 years after we started. We're not typical, and whether it was right or wrong, maybe it was right for us because we retain control of the business, we proved the model, and we were able to keep control of the business. But potentially it might have slowed the growth because we're really short of cash, especially in a business where we require a lot of working capital. That was very challenging, and I had a lot more grey hair. I'm hiding it well, but during those 4 years. So I don't think there's a right or wrong time. It also depends on your business and what you want and what you want to achieve as well.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I would say the way to think about raising money that's my philosophy. Raise enough to get to the next big milestone, and then do it again. And of course, as an entrepreneur, there comes a point, like it did for me, that the next milestone was exit. Fine, I didn't need to raise any money, and I was profitable when the exit happened. In total, I raised $9 million, and I sold for just under $100 million. So I raised very little, and so from a value perspective to my investors, it was a great outcome. But I didn't need to raise any more than that. We were very capital efficient, and of course that meant that I retained more of the business for myself. But but I think as an entrepreneur, you always want to raise enough money to get you to the next big milestone, and then if you need to raise again. But the thing that I personally like is entrepreneurs who like to think about profitability. Maybe not to try and drive towards profitability, but always think about building a resilient business. The underlying economics need to be right. So just throwing money, to get growth, but without actually figuring out how ultimately you're going to be profitable. Yeah. That doesn't make any sense to me. So I think that's also part of it as well. Yeah.
And I totally agree. And we did that although we are loss making, because there's a lot of a high setup costs. Applying for license, for example, I was saying to someone in the group, to apply a license in the US is 50 states. It's one per state. That took us 3 years. Very high, entry cost. So you need to invest, and these things take time, and therefore that's there. But we always try to manage to if the worst came to the worst, we could cut marketing and be, break even. So, and we had to do that once or twice in the early days to come there. So, and that's one way in that type of business, because I say it's very different to yours. That's one way to look at it as well.
Yeah. And Shirin, I assume that your investing philosophy now is similar.
Yeah, I mean, I like ambitious entrepreneurs. Those who really want to just grow their businesses and ultimately return value, not just for themselves but for their investors. So I have to see passion in people's eyes, and so I look very, very much at people who I guess in a way similar to how I was.
Yeah.
I don't know,
And
people with my higher
she's quite
people.
unique, because I have to say
Oh,
that, because a lot of our all the investors I know and I've got have never actually done a proper job before. Probably
Yeah, that is on the video, but maybe we'll have a word with Victor about
but a lot of investors have not actually run a business themselves, so
Yes.
sometimes it can be challenging. So I
Yes.
think you've got a very different perspective, which I think would be very useful.
Yeah, I would agree
It's
with
quite
that.
nice because I'm like a magnet for all entrepreneurs. And For Capital invests in later stage, so at B series. But I personally invest in very early stage, so I'm a member of Cambridge Angels.
Oh, yes,
so,
of course, yeah.
So I kind of deal with both ends of the spectrum. But
Yeah.
But it's important, I think, what you said about investors. If they've been there and done it, then almost they become like a mentor as well, because they can actually, help with operational side of things as well.
On the positive side, even investors who have not run a business, I think VCs can bring a lot as well. I said for the standing, but also the contacts they've got and so on. So there's a lot of positive, but sometimes is in the management style of the business, they might have more of a book type approach rather than a real experience.
Operational experience is
And
very
patience,
important.
I think. If you've got operational experience, you'll be a lot more patient with the management team, because you know what they're going through and you can empathize and put yourself in their shoes, rather than perhaps be a bit more kind of judgmental and jump into conclusions, etc., etc.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Other questions from the floor before we wrap up? At the back.
Hi, I'm Jessica Mendoza, and my question is about how long did it take you to create your core team? So from the moment that you started your idea, you had your prototype, and you were collecting the team members together, how long did it take you? Was it a matter of months, years? If you have anything to give insight on that.
It's a difficult one because the team has progressed quite a lot in the last 8 years, and we've had and one of the problems, and maybe sometimes where you've got to make hard decisions, is when you recruit early on, they are good people at the time, but they are not so good when the business has scaled up. So you have sometimes to make quite hard decisions, and people who have really helped you, who have been really good, part of your family, and you have to say, now I think your time has come, because you like the small type company, the environment where everything moves, but as you progress and you have more processes and so on, we've got 700 people now, very different, and a lot of the people who are still there from the beginning say, oh, it's not the same, it's not like it used to be a family and everything, and you can't, you've got to progress. So it's quite, you will build a team, and then the team will progress as you go along, and depending on the size of your company. So there's not quite really a straight answer to that.
I definitely agree with that. The team evolves. And even as CEO, I had to evolve, right? Running a 10-man company is very different to running 100, 200, It's, you have to mentally change the way you think, you have to change the way you manage people, change the way you measure the company performance. And I completely agree that you might hire somebody when you are really small and they're great, but they can't keep growing with the business, and that inevitably happens, especially if it's a high growth business, because people just don't have time. And sometimes you've hired some amazing people, but you just don't have time to get them to a point where you need them to be. And inevitably you have to start hiring above them. It doesn't mean you let them go or anything, because if you're a high growth company, those people will always be an amazing part of. I had people who stayed with me for like nearly 9 years, and they were still there at the exit. But some of them had grown, and in fact one person went all the way, and he was a senior VP. He reported to me when we exited the company. But one person didn't, and he was still a product manager, as he was when I hired him, 8-9 years ago. So it just depends on the person and whether they can themselves grow. And sometimes people are happy doing a particular job, right? just because you're managing people doesn't mean, you've suddenly moved up your career. I mean, some people were individual contributors, but they were just as important to me as, let's say, a manager who managed 70 people. So I think it's also the way, management also value their staff. I certainly valued individual contributors just as much as I valued, somebody senior that was running a big team, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Okay, I think given the time, we should probably wrap it up. So first of all, I would like everyone to join me in thanking our speakers.
Thank you.
That was great. This will go up on the Wit YouTube channel shortly. Our next event is the Wit Holiday Party, where I think Tech Will Save Us will be selling its products, along with a number of other people. That's the December 11th. It's at the Science Museum, this year in the Dana Studio, since they're renovating space in the Smith Center that we normally use. There is information up on the Wit website on the event, and you can sign up on Eventbrite if you'd like to join us. In 2019, our first event is going to be on MedTech, and Annette Nabavi, one of our directors who's very kindly had the microphone tonight, is putting that event together right now. We're also going to do Travel Tech in May, and our usual What Happened at Mobile World Congress whenever we can work it out with the GSMA. So on that note, the main thing I'd like to ask you all to do is please give us back your badges so that we have them for you next time, because we try to be efficient and recycle, and hope to see you in December. Thank you.